Hey everybody, Darlene here at Petal Academy. If this is your first visit to our videos, you'll be happy to know this is a place of inspiration and creative and educational ideas for the floral industry. We're bringing you nomenclature about flowers, so flower names, and all sorts of tips and tricks on how to keep your flowers lasting, and also how to order your flowers, how to ask for certain varieties. That's why we're here. If you like this video, you can subscribe down below and hit the like button. That would be great. And you can also visit petalacademy.com for lots of inspiring videos and educational videos. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about a few rose varieties that I brought in just to show you, so you can learn some names on some different roses that we carry at the shop. Most of the varieties that I brought today, you'll be happy to know, are thorn-free. So something to think about if you are afraid of thorns. That's why I'm not wearing any gloves today. But one of the varieties we're going to talk about first is a beautiful pink monodel. So you'll see that name come across the screen. This pink monodel rose is a nice light blush tone. You can see those beautiful colors in there, just sort of creamy on the outside and blush on the inside. It's got a dark green foliage. When we get our roses in, they usually come with these guard petals on the sides, so you're going to want to remove those. Some florists leave them on. We usually remove them so that they kind of look picture perfect when they're in the studio ready for purchase. And this rose is in a lovely sort of bud shape right now. You can see that they kind of open up a little bit more full. This guy's got a little bit more fullness to it. And these have all been brought in. These are all from the same package. So you can see they're at sort of a little bit of varying sizes there. So it's going to open up a little bit fuller than this. The monodels usually have a pretty large petal count, which is beautiful, and it's a beautiful blush color for weddings, so it's a popular rose for weddings. So when you're taking care of your roses, and anytime you take them out of the water, always be sure to trim your rose on an angle, just up the stem. Give your stem a nice full angle. That gives that surface a really large area to take up as much water as possible. Roses are 90% water, so they need a lot of water. So that is almost imperative whenever you're caring for your roses. And we're going to go over some tips on how to care for them a little bit later. The next variety we're going to talk about is one of my favorites, and an orange rose. This one is an orange unique. And you can see these have kind of started to pop open a little bit. The orange unique is a different type of rose. It's a little sort of tea rose in style. I'll come close and I'll show you one of those guys. You can see it's got that corally sort of outside, nice creamy orange on the inside, and a nice dark green foliage. Again, darker stem, doesn't have a lot of thorns on it. But you can see that these have really started to open quite quickly. And orange unique typically opens rapidly, but it'll hold that shape really well. So they're still nice and firm, even though they've started to show some color. And I love the way they open, because they just look like an antique kind of a old-fashioned style rose. You can even see sort of a bit of a seeded kind of middle on the inside there. I'll show you this one really up close. Just that seeded sort of interesting look there that you get. And a lot of times clients will ask me, you know, oh, those are open, they must be old. That's not always the case. Roses they each bloom a different way. So they all have this beautiful story to tell. So it's kind of fun to sort of experiment with buying some different varieties and letting them do their thing. So if you see these and they're already kind of open, that's okay. They're still gonna average life of a rose 5 to 7 days. So that's what you can expect from these as well, even though they're a little bit more open. So don't be shy about buying some varieties that are a little bit more advanced sometimes, because you'll really get to see some interesting characters in your rose blooms. So I'm gonna give these a trim, and I'm gonna pop them back into the vase. The next variety we're gonna talk about is, this one is a breezer rose. So this is a hot pink. It's a beautiful T-shaped rose, and it's gorgeous, packed with a punch, that hot pink punch color. So if you're looking for something with a bit of impact, a little bit more structure to this rose, this is a perfect variety. And it opens up like a beautiful traditional rose. So you can see how that's got that just lovely little shape there, really gorgeous. This guy, not too much of a fragrance. Sometimes you'll find some roses will have a faint rose smell to them. Others will, others won't. Maybe I think the orange unique have a little bit of a fragrance to them. Yeah, just a little bit, just a hint. And let's move on to the last one we brought today is this gorgeous green wasabi rose. So wasabi, just like the stuff we have with our sushi, awesome. It's got this lovely green sort of tone to it. You can see that. On the outside, you see those gorgeous petals that are the guard petals, but they kind of flow really nicely with this rose. One of the advantages of this rose is it has a huge petal count to its bloom. So I'm going to pull one out here that's nice and advanced, just so you can see it. Look at the size of this guy. Like, he is just a monster. He's almost the size of my hand, like my palm of my hand. So these are some gorgeous, fully petaled variety of rose. And you can see they almost go into the sort of creamy tone when you can see them open up, which is beautiful, right? So I'm just going to give these a trim. Now, for those of you, a little bit of a fragrance with those guys, which is nice. A little bit of a hint of a rose smell. For those of you who are having issues with your roses, if you bring them home and you're experiencing sort of bent neck, one thing you can do is, a couple of tips is you can take your roses and give them a good fresh trim. Prepare a vase ahead of time with warm to hot water and your preservative. And then give them all a really good cut on the edge with your angle again, and then into that vase. That is probably going to help them rehydrate, usually within a couple of hours. If you don't see anything happening, another thing you can do is just lay these little girlies in a bath, in a bathtub or a laundry sink or something like that, and just let them swim around in there for a couple of hours, and all those vessels will sort of draw in the moisture, so that'll help them hopefully rehydrate and solve your problems. Let them do that for about 2 hours. Then you're going to shake off all the excess moisture that has got inside the bloom and all that. You don't want to have any rot happening. Pull them out, dry them off, and wrap them up in a little bit of paper, and then trim them all again with a good pair of floral shears or a knife, whatnot, whatever you've got that's going to give them that fresh, clean edge, and then into a vase of warm to hot water. And then they should perk back up as well. The reason that we experience the bent neck is a lot of times is, when you get your roses, sometimes you may have gotten them and they're not in water when you receive them, or you've picked them up at the market and you didn't cut them and you pot them into a vase right away. Whenever they're not cut right away, they get the stem will start healing. So you're going to get an air pocket that sort of travels up that stem, all the way up that stem, and it creates a bit of an air bubble in that stem, and that's when we get that bent neck happening. So a way to avoid that is to make sure that whenever we get our roses, they need to get into water about 30 seconds at the max after they've been cut. So literally here at the shop, I'm like, they got to go in within 10 seconds. Like, we don't mess around here. They get cut and they're right into the vase. And that alleviates that air from traveling into that stem whatsoever, and it'll cut down on your bent neck. So give that a try. The other thing that's great about roses, a couple of tips, is if you're interested in drying them, they dry extremely well. So what you can do after you've enjoyed them, after those 5-7 days, they start to look a little bit faded. You may see them start to wilt at the end of their life just a little bit because those heads are getting really heavy. The stems are, it's harder for them to get support. So one thing you can do is you can gather them all together. You want to make sure there's no rot or anything like that on the stems. You can sort of stagger the heads a little bit if you prefer, or you can bunch them all together and then just tie elastic around the bottom really tightly, and you can hang them in a dry place that doesn't have a lot of natural sunlight. So somewhere dry, fairly dark, and they will dry extremely well for you in about 2 weeks, which is great. And then you can use them. If it's been a sentimental gift, you could use them in a little vase, or keep them out for a while, or they're just a nice memory of whoever gave them to you, or maybe you want to make something with it, a dried flower arrangement or potpourri or whatnot. All sorts of things. You can decorate candles with them too. There's all sorts of things you can do with the dried roses. So don't throw them out in the compost. You can dry them and keep enjoying them. The other thing I was going to mention is that if you're not, particularly fond of the long stems, and you wanted to create something that is a little bit easier to sort of deal with and sort of avoids the whole air moving through the stem issue is oftentimes when we get roses shipped, we get 50, 60 centimeter roses, and they're in really long lengths. So I don't particularly have space to have this huge vase of roses. I like to sort of chop them shorter so that I can enjoy them on my coffee table or something like that. So that what that does, it has actually, that water has less time to sort of travel up that stem. So your roses could last not even 7 days, but well beyond that if they've got a shorter sort of distance to travel with that water. So it's great. So one thing we're gonna do here is we're just gonna take a few of these Orange Unique right here. I'm just removing all the greens off the stem. I'm going to gather just a little bunch together and trim them and pop them into this little compote bowl here, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So easy to do, and it makes such a cute little arrangement just to pop on your kitchen table or your coffee table or whatnot. And when the roses are cut short like this, like I mentioned, you can expect them to last, almost a week to 2 weeks for sure. So I've just got these all kind of bunched together, just like so. I'm just gonna give them a quick trim. And I'm gonna pop them right into this little vessel, just like that. So it's nice and tight, easy to see. You can see that all kind of coming together in that little vase. How cute is that? Excellent. So thanks so much for watching today. Like I mentioned, subscribe below, like our video, and we'll see you next time at Petal Academy. Live life in full bloom.